So just really quick, this is a pretty much brand new world. I haven't played Minecraft in a very long time. All I've done so far is just explore a little bit, find a place to start a base camp in sort of an open cave area. This whole episode's basically just going to be devoted to exploring the caves a little bit and trying to find a sustainable food source. So that's it. Enjoy the stories. Before I tell my story, I just want to say I'm aware of how dumb it is to do stuff like this, and I probably won't be doing this for a long, long time after what happened a few months ago. Anyway, I just really needed to post this because I don't know who else to tell. About half a year ago, I had the scariest experience of my life. For context, I'm a dumb teenage boy who sneaks out every now and then just to walk around at night. So for about a year, whenever school gets hard or just life in general gets stressful, I sneak out and I just walk around for about 2 hours or so. Anyway, the night I'm talking about began with me deciding to go for another 2 a.m. ritual. I grabbed a sweatshirt, got on my shoes once I was outside, and hopped the fence to freedom. After I was safely away from my neighborhood, I took one of my usual routes, which is cutting through another neighborhood and walking onto a winding road, where I then walk down the middle of it and head toward a circle of shops and fast food restaurants. I was probably there for a solid chunk of time, just walking in the loop, and ended up sitting on a bench. At some point, I picked up a plastic spoon on the ground and started to grind it against the pavement until the spoon part was half gone out of boredom. This is important later. I was chilling there for a bit before I decided to walk around a bit more, and I eventually ended up at a park like 10 minutes away from my neighborhood, where I usually end off the night just staring off into the sky. The park itself creeps me out sometimes because at night there's a huge ring of trees surrounding all sides of you, and anyone could watch from the woods. Anyway, shit starts to get real here because I'm staring up into existence feeling like a philosopher while I'm laying on one of those table benches when I hear an old man whistle. I probably shot up because I had never heard another human interaction on these walks, and I see this old man dimly illuminated by a street light by the only entrance to the park. I had seen him before. He's this tall, skinny white guy that walks around our town all day, and I would honestly think he was homeless if he wasn't wearing the same fancy button-up and cargo pants every day. Me and my mom have talked about him, and we think he's mentally disabled and probably lives with a caretaker. I had an interaction with him once. About a year ago, I was walking home in broad daylight when I passed this guy who was at that time sitting on a bench. Dude just looks at me and says, "Jesus loves you," with a weird little smirk on his face. I responded with an awkward, "I know," even though I'm an atheist and didn't really think much of it. Anyway, back to the park at night. I just stare at him in that empty parking lot, probably way longer than I should have because he was already creeping me the hell out. I imagine we were staring at each other for a real long time because he slowly starts walking toward me, and at this point I'm frozen in fear because why the fuck is this old white geezer out with me at like 3 a.m. in an empty park? I'm standing up at this point when he gets close to me and just gives me this cheeky grin like he knows something I don't. And I'm still just gawking at him like a buffoon. Have you ever scoffed at a book or movie when the main character is frozen in fear? Well, I have, and I never will again because at this point I'm more frozen than I've ever been in my life. At some point, after probably like 10 seconds of awkward standing, he just kinda half pats and half grabs my shoulder and reaches into his pocket to pull out a plastic spoon. The same plastic spoon that I was holding about an hour ago at the shop plaza. He just kinda tucks it in my front sweatshirt pocket, and I guess something just makes my mind snap out of my frozen stance because I absolutely fucking book it to the public bathroom and lock the door. I'm now in this dimly lit bathroom in the middle of the night, and I'm guessing at this time it was past 3 in the morning. I assumed that maybe he would leave once he saw me in my state of panic, but honestly, I don't think he ever left. I ended up looking closer at the plastic spoon, and it was altered. Have you seen that one viral AI generated image where it looks completely normal at a glance, but you can't identify a single thing? If not, just search it up. Name one thing in this image. Now imagine that, except a word carved into a plastic spoon, but you can't read it or even identify any of the letters. I think I sat in that locked bathroom for over half an hour, just contemplating every single decision I've made in the past year that led up to the nightmare that I was in at that moment. To be clear, I had no phone or any way of contacting someone because my parents installed Life 360 on my phone, and they can see my location whenever. I also had no watch or access to the outside to tell the time. I ended up gaining the courage to unlock the door and just absolutely rocketed myself towards the exit of the park. Before I turned the corner, I looked back for a second and saw a figure sitting on the bench that was right next to the bathroom. This senile old man had waited outside for an hour just to see me one more time. I'm being completely honest when I say I held a full sprint until I got to my neighborhood, where I caught my breath behind a bush and then snuck back into my house. I haven't gone out at night since that experience, and I don't know if I'll ever sneak out again. I still have the spoon buried somewhere in my wardrobe, but I haven't looked at it in months. Sometimes I think about how long he was following me, and if it was an isolated incident or if he had been stalking me on other late night trips. I would love to hear your guys' opinion on the matter, unless you're here to lecture me about my actions, because trust me, I've already learned. Creepy old man that was stalking me that night, let's not meet again. A few months ago, we had a big family barbecue, and I, a 35-year-old male, brought my camera like I always do. Photography is just a hobby, but I love capturing candid moments, those little flashes of real emotion. I took a bunch of shots throughout the day, and one of them ended up being my sister-in-law, who's a 32-year-old female, mid-laugh. No posing, no filters, just sunlight and good timing. And yeah, it came out kinda stunning. I posted it, along with the others, in a private album for the family. I didn't single it out or make a big deal, but a few days later, my wife, who's a 34-year-old female, saw it and went totally silent. When I asked what was wrong, she said the photo of her sister made her feel ugly in comparison, that it was too flattering and made her feel invisible. She asked me to delete it, not because her sister was uncomfortable, she actually said she liked the photo, but because my wife couldn't stand seeing it. I didn't delete it. I probably should have, but I didn't. I told her it was just a nice photo, not a photo shoot, and that I wasn't going to erase a genuine moment just because of how it made her feel in comparison. Since then, things between us have felt off. She brings it up in little ways. She's more distant. I keep wondering if she actually believes I'm attracted to her sister, which I'm not, but I feel like this one photo cracked something open that I can't unsee now. I didn't mean to make her feel insecure, but at the same time, I feel like I'm being punished for something totally innocent. I don't know. I've stopped taking photos at family gatherings since then. It just doesn't feel right anymore. Approximately 15 years ago, my two friends and I are driving through a large city in our home state to go to a bar that another mutual friend of ours is performing at. He sings and plays the guitar. We're all in our late teens, 18 and 19, fresh out of high school. It's around 9 p.m. on a Friday. Greg is driving his old Buick LeSabre, I'm in the front passenger seat, and Megan is in the back seat. We're looking for a place to park near the bar when I spot a parking lot that says paid parking. We pull in and park the car but don't see anyone. However, the lot is about half filled with cars. We approach a rundown booth with a light on the inside, but no one is present. The door is noticeably chained with a padlock securing it. I see a sign that says parking $8 on it. As we're standing here looking around for an attendant, I see a tall, thin man who looked to be in his 30s. He had a hoodie, jeans, and a large backpack. He's walking down the sidewalk on the opposite side of the road from us when he notices us and jogs across the road and straight up to where we're standing. This man stops probably about 10 feet away. The man asked us if we were trying to park in this lot, and we told him we were. He tells us it'll cost $20 to park. Greg goes to pay him when I speak up and tell the guy the sign says $8. The man stares at me, looks over at the sign, and then says, "Okay, it's 8." I tell the man I don't think he works at this parking lot. The man chuckles at me and says he does. I tell the man to prove it and to open up the booth. The man looks at the booth and then looks at me, and then he says something along the lines of, "Come on, you can't be serious." I tell the man I'll give him the $20 he said earlier if he opens the booth. The man stares at me again and then says, "Okay." He shrugs off his backpack and starts rummaging around inside of it. At this point, I start to get a bad feeling in my stomach. I don't know who this guy is. We're in a city I know has a high crime rate, and he could have anything in this backpack. After about 5 seconds, he stops rummaging around, and it looks like he's grabbed something in the backpack but isn't pulling his hand out. He looks straight at me, not saying anything. I'm frozen. I can't feel my body. My mind is racing, but I can't move. I become painfully aware that I'm unarmed. I can see my two friends are visibly shaking at this point out of the corner of my eye. I don't know if I'm shaking or not. It felt like minutes, but it was probably only 10 seconds until the man starts speaking again. The man tells us we could have been on our way already if we just paid him the money. As he's talking to us, two vehicles pull into the parking lot and park next to each other not too far off from where we're standing. The The man cracks a smile, lets go of whatever he's holding, zips up the backpack, and puts it back on. He tells us we can park here free tonight, and then walks back toward the road the way he came. We don't move for a couple of minutes. We lost track of him pretty quick as he turned down the street and walked behind the first building next to the parking lot. A group of college kids get out of the two vehicles and approach the booth we're standing in front of. Megan finds her voice first and tells them what just happened. They get right back into their vehicles and leave. We also go back to the car and drive out of there, going down the road in the opposite direction the man walked. We find a parking garage somewhere and walk to the bar. Our heads are on a swivel the entire night. We get drunk, watch the show, and try to forget the man from the parking lot. July 14th, 1992. I remember the date because it was the night the world went black. Literally. I was working the graveyard shift as a security guard at a closed factory in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. The entire factory was shut down for vacation, meaning it was completely empty. My job was simple: to sit in my car in the parking lot and ensure no one entered the building. I wasn't allowed inside, which meant my car was my only post, my only shelter. The air had been heavy all evening, but no one expected what hit us. To pass the time, I had the radio on low, tuned to the Major League Baseball All-Star Game from Jack Murphy Stadium. The comforting thwack of the bat on the ball, the roar of the crowd, the announcer's smooth voice. It was a small piece of normalcy in the quiet, isolated factory. A thunderstorm rolled in with a sudden, violent fury. One moment, the rhythmic hum of the factory's distant generators was my only company. The next, the world outside exploded. Rain lashed against the windows, and the wind howled like a banshee. Suddenly, the baseball game was interrupted by the jarring, urgent tone of the emergency alert system. A robotic voice cut through the static. "Tornado warning. Seek shelter immediately." A jolt of terror went through me. Then, with a definitive thunk, the power went out. Inside the sprawling, silent factory, the emergency lights kicked on, casting an unsettling, glowing red like embers in a dying furnace, barely visible through the sheets of rain and the momentary flashes of lightning. It was like looking into the eyes of some dormant beast. Outside, though, the darkness was absolute. The parking lot lights, usually a beacon, were dead, swallowed by the storm. I peered into the pitch-black abyss, unable to see more than a few feet in front of me. And that's when it hit. A terrifying, splintering crash that sent a tremor through the pavement and up into my seat. The sound, impossibly loud, seemed to hang in the air, its echoes stretching into an agonizing eternity, even as the storm raged. It was close. Too close. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had to know what happened. I had to get out. Fumbling for the ignition, I started my Ford Escort, its engine coughing to life, a small, fragile island of noise in the howling chaos. I edged the car forward, my headlights cutting twin beams into the black void of the curvy driveway. The rain was a solid wall, making every foot of progress feel like driving blind. Then, the beam caught it. Filling the entire exit, sprawling like a monstrous broken limb, was a giant oak tree, its colossal trunk having ripped from the earth. It smashed the company sign to splinters, completely blocking the only way out. I was trapped. Alone. In the dark, with echoes of a tornado warning still ringing in my ears. And I had no idea what was out there. With no cell phone in 1992, contacting anyone was impossible. I was truly on my own. Trapped and isolated, I huddled in my Ford Escort, the only refuge against the unseen fury outside. Then, amidst the pandemonium, a sudden unnerving silence began to creep in. The roaring wind faded to a whisper, and the deluge softened to a drizzle. A strange, deceptive calm settled over the factory, like the world was holding its breath. Against my better judgment, a desperate need to understand the chaos, to see the extent of the damage, pulled me from the relative safety of my car. I opened the door and stepped out to this strange, humid stillness. I couldn't see much in the lingering darkness, just the vague outline of debris in the looming factory. But the respite was brutally short-lived. Before I could fully survey the destruction, the storm resumed with a vengeance. It didn't roll back in, it exploded around me. The wind shrieked, instantly tearing at my clothes. Rain turned from drops to a solid icy sheet, blinding me. I had to run, stumbling through the renewed deluge, scrambling back to the flimsy shelter of my car. By the time I slammed the door shut, I was soaking wet, shivering not just from the cold, but from the gut-wrenching terror of being caught in that sudden, overwhelming assault. The wind was a physical force, shaking my Ford Escort violently. It felt like a giant hand was pushing against the roof, threatening to roll the car over. Then, adding to the nightmare, a tree branch was blown directly under my car. It lodged there, scraping and scratching against the undercarriage with an eerie, rhythmic sound that grated on my nerves. The rain intensified, a relentless downpour that turned the windshield into a blurred, opaque wall. I couldn't see anything. I was just a small, vulnerable target in the heart of the storm. Suddenly, the baseball game on the radio was interrupted again by the familiar, chilling tone of the emergency alert system. Another tornado warning. It felt like lightning was striking all around my car, not with a crash, but with a series of sharp, terrifying clicks. One particularly close strike illuminated the darkness for a split second, and I saw sparks shoot up into the air nearby, only to fizzle out just as quickly. For the next 10 minutes, I sat there, frozen behind the wheel, unable to move, unable to think of anything but the terrifying power unleashed outside. Then, just as abruptly as it had arrived, the storm completely stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the ringing in my ears. I cautiously got out of my car, the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and crushed leaves. I reached down and pulled the offending tree branch from beneath my Escort. Leaning against the still shaking car, I listened, and in the distance I heard the faint, comforting wail of sirens. Within 30 minutes, a Cuyahoga Falls police officer spotted me from the road, his spotlight cutting through the lingering gloom. The sight of another human being, even just a silhouette in the beam of a flashlight, brought an overwhelming sense of relief. The factory owner arrived around 2 a.m., and by 8 a.m. the colossal tree that had trapped me was finally removed. I later learned that a tornado had indeed touched down in Cuyahoga Falls that night, just over a mile from where I was. Thinking about how close I came, about the absolute isolation and terror I felt, filled me with a profound sense of gratitude. I felt happy just to be alive. And for the record, the American League won the All-Star Game 13-6. I, a 26-year-old male, am married to a wonderful wife, a 30-year-old female. As long as we've been together, she's been overweight. During our talking phase, she asked if her weight was an issue for me, and I said absolutely not, and in my heart of hearts, I believe I meant it. I understand there are health risks associated with being overweight, but there are also health risks just living, so I always did my best to support my wife in whatever she chose to do. When she decided she wanted to start working out, we got a gym membership together. When she wanted to meal prep, we meal prepped together. When she wanted to go on walks, we walked together. While she would try to lose weight, it seemed like motivation would dwindle after a day or two. She always felt bummed out that she couldn't stick to something, and I would just be there for her and do what I could to support her in whatever she needed. If she felt too overwhelmed to meal prep, we would work together to eat healthier. What I'm getting at is, I truly believe my wife is the most gorgeous, funniest, hardworking person I've ever met. And I love her with my whole heart. I truly believe that. Here comes the confession. My wife and I have been married for a few years now, and in the last year and a half, I've struggled to become sexually connected with my wife. I find myself fantasizing about her when she was thinner. I find myself wanting to pressure her to lose weight. I absolutely cannot stand feeling this way. I do not want to pressure her to lose weight. I do not want to fantasize about her being thinner. I want to be sexually, emotionally, and spiritually connected with my wife, and I feel disconnected, and it really, really sucks. Anyways, thanks for letting me get that off my chest. Cheers. I'm not posting this to scare anyone. I just need to put this somewhere because it's been stuck in my head for years. If anyone experienced something similar in the area, I'd love to hear about it. This happened when I was about 18 or 19. It was a summer night, probably late July or early August. It was warm out, so a friend and I had gotten into the habit of driving around late at night just to talk. We'd do loops outside the city, the kind of quiet, empty roads that cut through the French countryside. No real destination, just driving and talking, windows cracked, music low. This one night, it was around 1:30 a.m., the road was completely empty. No streetlights, no visible houses, just open fields on both sides. We were going slow, maybe 50 kilometers per hour, talking about something personal, and then suddenly, my friend hit the brakes. He didn't yell or panic, just a sharp, reflexive stop. And there, in the headlights, I saw a man crossing the road. He came out of the field to our left, walking toward the one on the right. What immediately struck me was that he was completely naked. His skin was an oddly pale, flat beige, almost like a dull gray. But that's not what stuck with me. It was the way he moved. He didn't walk like a drunk or someone hurt. It was more like he didn't weigh anything. His steps were slow and floaty, like he was forcing his body to move forward. His arms hung loose, his head tilted slightly down. He never turned toward us, no reaction to the lights, the sound, nothing. He crossed slowly and disappeared into the field on the other side. We were silent for a couple of seconds. Then my friend muttered, "Was he naked?" and suddenly accelerated. We drove back toward the main road, not saying much. I wasn't scared exactly, but I felt this deep, uneasy knot in my stomach. Like what I saw didn't make sense. Not just the man, but the entire moment. The next day, out of curiosity, we went back in the afternoon. We recognized the spot easily because of a twisted tree by the roadside, but when we looked around, there was nothing. No trail, no path, no house nearby, just two big fields and the same quiet road cutting through. I have no rational explanation for what we saw, but I know what we saw, and I know it wasn't normal. So, backstory, this matters. I was born with 10% vision. Over time, it's gotten better with time and surgery, but right now I'm late 30s and it's only around 45%, so there's that. Last night, I was out to dinner with some friends, having a good time. We were drinking a little bit, nobody was driving, it was just a fun night. So I'm coming out of the bar, saying some goodbyes. My friend decided he was going to stay out, so we parted ways and I started walking home. So I get about 3 blocks from the bar and I see this girl I know across the street to my left. At least, she looked like a girl I know, but once again, bad vision and tipsy. So I guess you could say I started staring at her, just sort of trying to figure out if it was her or not. So she sees me, and looking back on it, I should have stopped walking over to her, but I'm 100% blaming this on being tipsy. I pursued her. So at this point, I'm yelling now, "Madeline, Madeline, stop, stop." She's just speed walking. I'm not sure what came over me, but I decided it was a good idea to yell playfully, "I'm gonna getcha." So in heels and a skirt, this girl starts running. She was looking back every few yards, and I'm just following after her, convinced completely that this was my friend. So we rounded the corner and it's a dead end. She backs up against some garbage cans which go bang bang and goes to her purse. At this point I can't see shit. It's not only dark, but I'm out of breath, sweat is dripping in my eyes, and the partial blindness isn't helping. So I get up close to her and she just says, "Get away from me, motherfucker, I have a gun." Instantly, I realize this isn't my friend. Also immediately afraid. I say, "Sorry, wrong person." She prompts me again with, "Get the fuck away from me, I will shoot you." I very swiftly turn and waltz myself back towards the street and then walk on home. Told my roommate about it later and he told me I was a complete idiot and I was lucky I didn't get shot. He also told me that I'd probably make it onto r/let's not meet. Some guy chased me down an alley and cornered me. So, sorry about that, unknown lady, I promise we won't meet. This happened around 2003 to 2005 when I was about 17 to 19 years old. It was broad daylight, nothing eerie going on, just a normal day at a mall in Queens, New York. I was there with my older brother and his then girlfriend, Melissa. We were walking toward the exit, just a long, straight hallway leading to the doors outside, typical mall layout. Coming in through the same hallway were 3 people, a white guy and 2 white women, all in their 20s maybe. They were a good distance away when I first noticed them. Nothing unusual at all about them. The guy in particular looked totally unthreatening. Kind of nerdy, honestly. But as we kept walking and got closer to passing them, I suddenly felt this wave of absolute dread. Like a gut punch of fear and panic, totally out of nowhere. It didn't make sense, but it felt wrong. Really wrong. I didn't say anything, I just suddenly started running. Without me saying a word, my brother started running too. He later said he felt the exact same thing. That overwhelming sense of danger or fear. Like we had to get away from that guy immediately. We didn't look back. We didn't try to make sense of it in the moment. We just left. I don't think Melissa felt anything, or if she did, she didn't say. And this was all before smartphones and easy online info, so I never looked up if anything happened there. Nothing about the guy stood out, no staring, no weird vibe in the obvious sense. But I've never forgotten that feeling. The kind that bypasses your brain and screams straight from your body. Go. Has anyone else experienced something like that? Where your body knew before your mind had a chance to catch up?